Hello, good evening. Welcome to the Trey Olds Radio Show. Thank you for joining us today. Today, my special guest is voice actor Mr. Rodger Bumpass. Thank you, and join us in a minute. Okay, my first question to you is, how did you get started in your career? How did your career in the industry begin?
Well, it all began with puberty. I had a very high voice when I was a child, and then when that happened, everything dropped like the mumps, and I got this nice lower voice, and it sounded like what we all call announcer. So I decided to pursue a career in broadcasting. I actually won an announcing contest when I was in high school, so that kind of set me on the path. Studied radio and TV in college, and actually got a degree in that, but became more interested in performing. And set out from the wilds of Arkansas for New York City and got involved with the National Lampoon magazine and a road show. And they were going to do, this is right before Animal House came out, and they were going to do another movie after that, which was the third Jaws film, which was going to be a comedy called Jaws 3, People Zero. And I had the lead in that film. But we were going to show how the shark worked, so Mr. Spielberg stepped in and said, no, you got to cancel that movie. So I was left, high and dry there, a young actor with nothing to do. So I just walked down the hall in my agent's office and said, I can do these voices and stuff. Why don't you start sending me out for that? And they did, and pretty soon that became my bread and butter. And so I went from trying to be an announcer, which I still do in commercial work, to concentrating on acting. And that's just about the gist of my small little story.
And you've been doing it ever since. So that's
ever since. And I'm going to keep on doing it until I get it right.
Absolutely. My next question is, what do you find is the most difficult or the most challenging part being an announcer and voice actor?
Well, sometimes you'll find a director, both commercial and animation and anything else, that's a little hard to work with. I think that, fortunately, in my life, it hasn't been that way. But ever so often, you'll come across somebody, I won't name names here, that are hard to please and will put you through the mill. Work you really, really, really hard, and it's just not very gratifying and not very pleasant to do. But it's like any other business, I suppose. When you have a hard boss, a hard to please boss, it's not that fun. But like I say, thankfully, it's been very easy relative to other occupations.
Yeah, this business isn't for everybody, but
no, it certainly isn't. It's one of the hardest things to make a living at. Which has changed through technology with the internet and various other things in our union and stuff. So it's easier for some people and a lot harder for the regular folks like myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but if you're persistent and have the passion for it, you're going to make it in this business. You just can't. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
After the cancellation of that Jaws movie, my agent and the director of the film both said to me the same thing: talent will out. If you just persevere, stay with it, and have confidence in yourself, and there's always going to be a number of people out there that are going to think you are talented and will want to hire you. Your job is to find them.
Absolutely.
And always pursue your dream. It doesn't mean that it's going to ruin your life if you don't pursue that, but you will always wonder, that little nagging thing in the back of your mind and in the back of your heart that says, what could have been if I had, given it my all? And I always tell young people that there's no, there's the only failure is not trying. So, you got to pursue things.
Absolutely. And there's always opportunities out there. So there's always...
You have to find them.
Oh, absolutely. I've been in radio for 6 years. I've done voiceover work, my radio show, theater, acting. I've enjoyed it very much, and I hope to keep doing it.
It is fun. Referring to the broadcast thing, if I hadn't chosen acting, I always tell myself I would have become a weatherman, because it's more free form, it's not scripted. And you do get to perform a little bit as a weatherman, course, coming from Arkansas, which I did, we have tremendous weather there. And so I miss that. I live in California, so we don't, Southern California specifically, and we don't have a whole lot of volatile weather, so it's kind of boring.
Yeah. My next question is, well, you do a lot of voices, but you're probably most recognized for a particular voice on a certain cartoon show, SpongeBob SquarePants, as Squidward. That's probably...
He has a name.
Squidward Tentacles, yep.
Tentacles! It's tortellini! Oh, no, wait.
Tennis
it's
balls.
Tennis balls. No. Tentative. No, that's not it. Squidward, Tiananmen Square. No, wait, I'm not Chinese. Tentacles. You had it right to begin with. I had to check my driver's license there.
That must be a fun gig to do. I can imagine,
It is so much fun. I always tell people I don't have to work. I get to work, especially to be a part of something that is this long-lasting and this award-winning, and it's lucrative for all involved. It's iconic. Most of us in the cast, well, I'd say some of us in the cast do Comic-Cons. Mm-hmm. And that's where we get to see how the audiences and the fans really regard our characters, and that's very gratifying to see that we are a part of people's lives. Being around 20 years, a lot of the young adults were 3, 4, and 5 when we premiered, and so we ushered them through their childhood and into adulthood, by the way, and now they're turning their children on to us. So we are actually multi-generational in that. And it's great to be a part of the legacy of someone's lives, because I would have said that to Mel Blanc for Looney Tunes if I ever could have met him. So it's very gratifying and rather humbling to be a part of people's lives like that.
Yeah, it's amazing, and it's still going strong. SpongeBob is still going strong. 20 years.
Yeah, we're doing more now than we ever have been.
Absolutely. What do you find is the most difficult part voicing Squidward? Do you find any difficulties doing that voice?
Well, it's a kind of a two-sided coin. Early on in the show, they had an episode where I screamed, and I had to do a lot of different screams, and which is one of my fortes. I can do that without wrecking the voice generally. And so ever since then, one of the mainstays of Squidward is that he responds in this apoplectic scream sort of thing. So they have me scream practically in every episode. I always kid them when we do post-production. It's never words that I have to add to the ADR. It's just grunts and screams and reactions and stuff. So I say the words perfectly. It's just that you want extra stuff in there. But every so often there'll be an episode where it's just so taxing. The one where the lemonade stand, where they scared Squidward and he exuded ink.
Oh yeah.
And the audience loved it, and so they had to and they ran out. So they had to repeatedly scare him, and then he excreted his ink. And that sequence was scare, and then scream, and then exude the ink, and I had to do all of that myself, and had to do it scores of time during the episode, and it was the hardest episode I've ever had. And I actually don't think it was a very good episode, to tell you the truth, but it was one of those things. And as a side note, all the way through the show, they had avoided the biological phenomenon of an octopus ejecting ink out, because it always looked like he was peeing. Mm-hmm. And so they had to come out my nose, which solved that issue. I just hope they don't do it again.
Yeah, that was a rather interesting episode.
Yeah.
One of the newer ones, but
fairly new, yeah.
And you do other characters in the show as well. I remember you.
We all do what's called incidentals. We do our main character, and then we do characters that only show up in that one episode. Sometimes they're recurring, but so we get to do whatever repertoire you have as the peripheral characters. So it's great fun. You get to explore various things that you can do. So and especially the way we record things. is very liberating. We'll take like 2 pages of the script and do it as written, so the writers and animators get what they want, and then we do what's called a third take, our crazy take, which we get to ad-lib, add things, do things exactly the way we want to do. So the writers get what they want, and then we get to riff using our improvisational skills and creativity, and a lot of that stuff finds its way into the show. So yeah, in addition to doing other characters, we all get to be creative in the formulation of every episode. So it's a very good way to work.
Absolutely. Yeah, it must be a fun show, and I've done research on it. The show gets a lot of great guest stars. I remember.
Oh yeah.
Ernest Borgnine and Tim Conway. Barnacle Boy and Mermaid Man.
Yeah, they were actually regulars. That I've never got in my career. I've never gotten really starstruck about anybody, but Ernie and Tim were parts of my childhood growing up, and of course Ernie was an Academy Award winner and just a fine actor, and Tim was just a superlative comedian, and it was sad to lose both of them actually. Mm-hmm. But we've had from Johnny Depp to David Bowie to all kinds of other people. We're almost like the old Batman episode of a TV show, because it was a hip show, and that celebrities were actually asking to be on it.
Yeah,
and so we're plugged into that kind of thing. It's kind of hip to be to do a cameo.
Yeah, that's what I always liked about SpongeBob. I didn't know that as a kid. You didn't really focus on
right.
that. But as you got older, wow, all these great voices. It's amazing.
Yeah, and some of them are pretty good too. David Bowie was pretty good.
Mm-hmm. I remember one episode, Betty White was on it, I think, on one.
Yeah, Betty White. I never see the celebrities. They always record, like in New York or whatever. Johnny Depp recorded it from out of his kitchen, and so I never get to see them. But someone told me that Betty White did that, so that's pretty cool. She's revered. She's actually older than sliced bread.
I know.
She actually can say that because she was born before 1929, and that's when sliced bread came out.
That's a running joke, yeah.
Yeah.
My next question is, besides SpongeBob, do you have any other upcoming projects or any voiceover gigs you can share?
Well, right now things are a little focused on SpongeBob, so the industry, like I say, has changed, and so we do whatever we can. We recently I worked on Invader Zim, which is a very turned into a cult. It really has its own Comic-Con, by the way. And we did a TV special recently. I think they showed it on Netflix, and it got some good response. And just the fact that they did it may, and I emphasize the may, indicate that they're thinking about bringing it back. So that would be very nice. And of course, if you look at the resume, I've done all kinds of stuff through some 45 years in this business. So, but nothing on the horizon right now except for more SpongeBob, and that's fine by me. If you have to have one job, that's the one to have.
Absolutely. Yeah, I recognize your voice in a few other things. You've done a few video games and a few other.
I've done lots of video games, yeah, and all the SpongeBob games.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and I'm a gamer myself, and every time I worked on a game, I can never get to the point of the game where my character comes in. It's like, I got to bring in a 12-year-old to get me to level 40,
Yeah, I remember you did a voice for, I think it was a DC Comics game. Dr. Light was your character.
Well, Dr. Light is something I actually am still doing.
Oh, really?
Teen Titans turned into Teen Titans Go. They turned it into a comic. And Dr. Light was part of the old and part of the new. In fact, I just finished an episode with them. So they sporadically bring me back. It's always a nice. Dr. Light is analogous to the Star Trek crew member with the red jersey that he comes on in the beginning of the show and is dealt with. Or he dies, or he doesn't die, but he's dealt with, and then the real villain for the episode comes in after that. So he's kind of the appetizer of the episode lots of times.
Yeah. Yeah, voice work, it's amazing to be in this industry. You know, there's so many characters you can do, and